whether she's mature or immature, I think this commentary is necessary for this series. So I want to put it out there. I do want to clarify, because it kind of just mic drops at the end. I do want to clarify that, yes, I believe Tiphani Montgomery is a necessary prophetic voice in many ways. And I know she's not fully vetted in the full extent of the office of the prophet, or people who have the full prophetic ministry. I think it's a shame that most prophets don't know or follow after you've an angel. You're going to limit yourself. There are a lot of people smart in their critique. They just act very dumb around their overall concept of. Hopefully everyone get on the same page. At the end of the day, none of this stuff gonna matter when it comes to heaven or hell. My wife has way more influence than Tiphani Montgomery, and she has it being a woman. And she is the most accurate woman I know, but she's not trying to force an anointing. Some of these women got their own spirit in the pulpit. They're trying to be more anointed than men. It's almost like a transgender spirit. You know what I mean? Elijah didn't like Elisha. He tried 4 times to discourage him to get away from him. You the new prophetic voice, you not have the voice about him. She's a legitimate prophetic voice. She's just got to get fully proofed in that mantle. Any prophet, any real deal, old school. So I got on the phone. I said, don't talk to my wife like that. And so you're not gonna sit up there and argue with her and yell at her. My wife wouldn't fight like that.
But I am specifically responding to a video that a false apostle by the name of Johnathan Ferguson did against me. I don't know Johnathan Ferguson. I met him a few months, him and his wife, in 2017, almost 10 years ago. Here's the false fraud Ferguson, right? Here are his views, okay? 2,500, 4,000. Here's his view when he said my name. Their pastor that I had run into in 2015, and he would meet with me at Panera Bread. And I said, hey, do you mind having church at your house? Because I would like for my friends to come. We ended up having a really nice house church. It was powerful. That pastor asked me, Tiphani, can you be my house prophet? And I said, no. Me to do a live against somebody. Number 2, Ferguson the fraud said Tiphani Montgomery asked me to be her covering. And that's when her name blew up when she went against Matthew Stevenson. I don't believe in the doctrine of covering. That's nothing new. Nobody in my life, not even an ex-friend, believes that I thought of that doctrine. I've never thought of that doctrine as true. My father covered me. He's dead. You understand? But I never believed in that doctrine of covering. The Fergusons, for the small amount of time I knew them, and I were peers. We were literally peers. P-E-E-R-S. We were literally peers. He said, I even have her on audio recording asking me questions in the classes she was in, signed up from. No, we were in a living room. We were in a living room. He said, number 3, he said, she tied to us when she was leaving that church. No, I gave to everybody's church. Still do. And not to his, but I'm just saying, I'm a giver. So just so we're clear. I was sitting in a living room. I don't know if you want to call that a class. I didn't take a course. He sent me a million courses to take, emailed me, and I never took a course. Ferguson the fraud then goes on, number 4, to talk about Millions Conference. He says Tiphani Montgomery would not have had her Millions Conference if Matthew Stevenson did not release her to have it. And then he immediately started to pray in tongues. Can we agree that it is not the Spirit of God talking through him? It is not the Spirit of truth talking through him if he lied on me. He said, because I had asked him to be my apostolic covering, which is a liar, and asked Cindy Trim to speak at my conference in 2017, which I regret. He literally said, I wanted him to be my apostolic covering. And then he says in another part of his video, he couldn't deal with me because I didn't want covering. So let me tell you what happened. When I left the church in Chicago, Matthew Stevenson called 5 of my speakers and told them to come off of my conference. Obviously, that was horrible. I asked for a meeting to see what I had done wrong, what I was being accused of, and Matthew Stevenson would not meet with me to tell me what I was being accused of at all. Johnathan Ferguson, the fraud. While I was still in Illinois, Johnathan Ferguson, the fraud, invited me to go to this pastor's house. So I go to this pastor's house. It's like 20 people there, all sitting around the table. Johnathan Ferguson says to me in front of all of these people, Tiphani, you need to have me and my wife on this conference. They think they can play with you. They think they can mess with you. You need to have me at your conference. They think nobody has your back. And I said, no, I don't know why they're beefing with me. And I do not bring anybody into my beefs. I am very capable of beefing with you all by myself. I've never been the person that needs to link up with other people to go against one person. So Johnathan Ferguson, the fraud, says to me, you need to have me and my wife come there. We don't care anything about that. They think that nobody that has your back and all of that. So then I say, well, I also don't want you on a conference because I just started this conference. So I don't take money out of one account to put it into another. I don't have the honorarium to pay you, which is what I said, right? He said, no, we don't need any money. And I said, well, no, I would like to pay. I just don't have that. I don't have that to pay you for this. Okay. Did you see the date? July 26, 2017. Hey, Markeith, I'm ready to book the flights. Let me know how you want to do it. XX, Tiphani. Here's the flight information. First class, first class. First of all, I just told everybody I didn't have the money to pay any of this stuff. Then he says, I forgot the armor bearer. That's the armor bearer's name. And then this is what knocked me down. Prophet Ferguson, the fraud, will take up an offering and split it 50% with your ministry and 50% with our ministry. Prophet asks that somebody from our team assist your team in the finance room. At that time, y'all, this is my conference. My Millions Conference is a very powerful conference for entrepreneurs, leaders, disruptors, like visionaries. It's powerful. I considered paying him the $10,000. You want to know why? Because just a month before, Matthew Stevenson had 5 people come off of my flyer. Do you know what that looks like? Do you know what that looks like for me to do? It wasn't until my good friend Ivan Land Jr. called my phone. I was sitting in the park in Chicago, Illinois, talking to God, asking him what I should do. And Ivan Land Jr. said to me, and paraphrasing, I'm gonna punch you in the mouth if you pay these people $10,000. They're frauds. Don't pay them anything. Take them off of your flyer, Tiphani. And I know you feel some type of way because Matthew Stevenson did this. He said, but take them off of your flyer now. I sent an email because there's also a narrative that wants to say that I am harsh. I am angry. That's what he said. I was angry. I'm passive aggressive, have anger issues and things of that nature, which is a lie from the pit of hell that people who are same-sex attracted often say to me. Only gay men say that stuff to me. It's never straight men. What somebody sent me because we were crafting up an email telling him not to do. She said, what do you think? Good day. I hope you're well. Our team is constantly working to improve all aspects of Millions Conference. Recently, we've decided to move in a different direction with speakers and presenters. Hence, at this time, we will no longer request Johnathan and Amanda Ferguson to speak or present during this year's conference and wanted to make your team aware of this as soon as possible. However, we look forward to future collaborative opportunities because I was clear about that. And then I said, also take out having Johnathan call me. I like all conversations about the conference to go through you and Markeith, since that's what he originally told me when talking about everything, because Johnathan Ferguson had said to me, don't talk to me about this conference at all. That's what he said. Johnathan Ferguson said in his video, I never yelled at Tiphani. I didn't lie to Tiphani. I didn't yell at Tiphani. I wasn't angry at Tiphani. I didn't lash out at Tiphani. Johnathan Ferguson, the fraud, yelled at me to the top of his lungs on that phone call and hung up in my face. Okay. So he hung up on me after yelling at me because he has a spirit of anger and he doesn't like women. But if you see the text message, it's August 10th, 2017. It says, hey, I just want to follow up with our last conversation. I was very disheartened with how the conversation ended with Johnathan hanging up the phone in my face. I would have never done that to you all, and I didn't expect it to happen to me. At this time, I'm not interested in pursuing a relationship. However, I'm glad we connected for the short time that we were together. Amanda then responds back and says, hey, I respect how you feel, love you forever, and I wish you much continued success. And him, because he was still with a spirit of anger, okay, he gave me Cindy. After I told him I'm not paying you, so don't come. He said I was a bigger name. So the God that he serves is Mammon. He absolutely said that. I actually wrote it down when he said it. The God that he serves is Mammon. I've always been integral when it comes to money. He says, she called me with Brian Carn on three-way in 2018. So you may say, Tiphani, how the heck did you end up in Brian Carn's church? There was a mutual that we all knew. And she said to me, I want you to meet Brian Carn. And I said, no, he's a warlock. So I'm not interested in meeting him at all. And she said, Tiphani, weren't you just called a warlock by Matthew Stevenson? You were just called a witch on live. Mistaken. And I said, I was just called a witch. And she said, are you a witch? And I said, I'm not. And she says, so why would you dare judge somebody based off of what you heard and not judge them accordingly? Because that's what people are doing to you right now. So that is how I ended up there, because that was fair. He said, my wife has more influence than Tiphani. I don't even know that to be true. I would fair to say that you do get a say not to follow leaders who are in witchcraft. You do get a say not to follow leaders who lie. You do get a say on not to follow leaders who sleep with their sheep. You do get a say to not follow leaders who have the love of mammon and are stealing all of your money. You do get a say to not to follow leaders who destroy and scatter sheep, because Jeremiah 23 says, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord. Envy is driving him. Mammon is driving him. Jealousy is driving him. Leviathan is driving him. A Saul spirit is driving him. Jezebel is driving him. Anger is driving him. Wrath is driving him. Misogyny is driving Johnathan Fraud Ferguson. And it's because he's weak. It's because he's insecure. It's because he's fragile. That's why he waited. That's why he can sit on a live and talk about TD Jakes and say, even if his name comes up in a freak off, and even if, why would you even say something like that and then try to turn it and say something positive about him? You're only speaking about these people because you feel like they've fallen and they're in a weakened state. He's a weak man, an insecure man, a jealous man who hates women and are jealous of his women. He's also jealous of his wife and her influence. He said on that video, he brought Matthew Stevenson's church to Memphis, Tennessee, and that's how Matthew Stevenson's church blew up. When I was around them in 2017 for a few months, the Fergusons, this was his only conversation. He was obsessed with Matthew Stevenson. He was obsessed with Brian Carn. He was obsessed with Juanita Bynum. He was obsessed with all of these other names, the Rod Parsley. He was obsessed. If you are an apostle of the Lord, why are you seeking for a wicked man to come and build your platform? It's because of mammon. He then goes on to say, after he lies about all of those things, Tiphani Montgomery has a soft heart. She's a sweetheart. When she loves somebody, she wants to give the world to them. He served mammon. And what he did was seed planted. What he did was seed planted. He gave you all of these aggressive lies about me and then turn around and say, but she's nice, she's soft, she's sweet. And you have to just tell the truth about me at all times. He said he's tired of people speaking against people they have ill will against. And then he says, why do all our prophets, Tiphani, see failure only, discredit somebody that used to feed you? Where in the Bible does it say that a prophet has to commend a sorcerer, a sorceress, a witch, somebody operating in the occult before you give a word of the Lord? Which one? He is a person that doesn't stand for righteousness. And as a matter of fact, he's deceiving God's people. And he's irresponsible because he's leading people to tolerate wickedness. He called me a transgender spirit, but if you really want to talk about perversion, he's the pervert. He's perverted God's pulpit. He's polluted God's pulpit. You've seen how tight his pants are. I don't know any man that's not same-sex attracted that don't wear their pants that tight. So we can't talk about a transgender spirit in the pulpit and not talk about the effeminacy in the pulpit. We can't talk about the homosexuality in a pulpit. We can't talk about your misogyny and spirit of religion in a pulpit. We can't talk about your lying tongue in a pulpit. We want to be very careful about talking about transgender spirits because you want to teach people that God's prophets aren't harsh. And so you're trying to direct the narrative around that we should be nicer and softer and all of that. It's because he's full of perversion. He was full of mammon and he was a liar even then. He told me, I was very honest with them about the honorarium. He said, we're not even going to take it. We just want to support you because what they're trying to do to you. And next thing I knew, they was like, honorarium is $10,000. I'm going to say it one more time. Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson is driven by mammon. He's driven by a Saul spirit, and a Saul spirit comes after the success of David. He is incredibly jealous of me. He is incredibly jealous of Brian Carn. He is incredibly jealous of Matthew Stevenson. And as you heard my story, I'm not in agreement with none of them, but I am a truth teller, right? Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson is driven by covetousness. He wants what everybody else has. That's why he's jealous of all of these platforms everybody else has, because he feels like he should have had it by now. Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson is driven by a lying spirit. Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson is driven by the spirit of perversion and pollution. Johnathan Ferguson is driven by lying signs and miracles. Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson is driven by witchcraft, deception, and delusion. And he's also an accuser of the brethren. He is driven by a self-seeking spirit that wants to have attention on him at all times. And he's driven by envy and jealousy. To the people that are inviting Johnathan the Fraud Ferguson on their platforms, God says, woe is you.